Die bad aber, als man kann noch als fragen, was ist für die Sichos von dem Inhalt, von dem Kovid zu dem, was ist auch von dem Moshe Shachas? Now, you can still ask, what's the connection in the fact that there was honor that Hashem accorded to Miriam and her waiting for Moshe for 1 hour? Mit dem Wort Mirachik is nor musbar as is nit given kein inyan from bikoach nefesh. We explained yesterday that the phrase that Rashi adds, at distance, only explains why Miriam's waiting had nothing to do with saving Moshe's life. Thus, weist aber nit tzad hashavet zwischen sie. However, it doesn't show a common denominator between these two events. So therefore, the Rebbe is Rashi Meiser, that's why Rashi adds the word v'goimer, etc. The hemshech akosov v'haparsha dart git den havonas ha'inyan. In other words, the continuation of the pasuk and the parsha helps us understand this idea. The uftu von dem was vatisatze v'achoyse mirochik l'dea ma yasalei. They tell the Torah darten. So when the Torah tells over that his sister was positioned to herself at a distance to see what would happen to Moshe Rabbeinu, so the Torah is telling, as b'shas bas paris gikumen lirchet zalayar v'geimer on sie hat dort gesehen an nar breiche batachem olav sie hat ihm gewollt baruikin und nicht gekannt und dem wollt vatemer achoise el bas pare haedich v'karasi loch isha meinekes ben ha'ivrius vatinok v'tinak loch esayela vatemer lo bas pare the chiv vatelech ha'alma zrizes v'alames vatikra es eim hayela. So as the Torah says that when Pari's daughter came to bathe in the yard, as the Rashi says over there that she came to, one of the opinions is to rid herself from Avodah Zarah. So she saw this child crying and she had pity on him. She tried to calm him down. Then Miriam came and said to Bas Pari, shall I call you this Hebrew nurse to nurse the child for you? So Pari's daughter's answer, go. So the girl ran, as Rashi says over there, quickly as a mature girl, and called the child's mother. It says, move on as euch when Miriam wollt dort nicht gewähnen, wie bald as hachzira so ala mitzvah is harbe linik, wo yonek, weil Bas Pare sich allein gehabt und wollt gerufen a jüdische Frui. Nor dann wollt es gedort a lange Zeit. Now, you could assume that even if Miriam, at the end of the day, would not have given this advice, Bas Pare, as we know, as Rashi says over there, the Gemara says that they took Moshe around to many Egyptian women nursed, and he had not nursed them, and ultimately she would have realized what was happening, and would have looked for a Yiddish woman, but it would have taken a longer time. U'v'meilas moving as their kovid shecholak le'hamakim das was v'ha'amlei nasa ad he'osav Miriam b'chtei as tsar von tisager shivas yom michutz l'machna soll was schnell endigen is midi connected midi b'shvil. So the Rebbe was asking that what's the midah keneged midah? The pashtos Miriam was hatzos nefashis. What's the midah keneged midah over here? So we explained that's the idea of meirachik, that by her standing at a distance, it didn't really do anything. It's not going to help Moshe Rabbeinu by standing at a distance. So from here we learn that Hashem accorded her and the people did not travel until Miriam was readmitted. So she had to be, as we know, she was at a camp for 7 days. Now, as we explained, if the Yidden would have been traveling, she would have traveled with them. So it's not an inyan of bikuach nefesh. She just would have been in limbo. So what was the honor over here? The honor is that all Bnei Yisrael waited for her, and they had the mitzias of a machane, so she could be mechutz the machane for 7 days right away, and she doesn't have to wait. And that's the idea also of the end of the pasuk, that at the end of the day, Bas Pari would have figured out that she needs to have a Jewish woman. It just would have taken a long time. So what did Miriam do? She sped up the process. So since she sped up the process with Moshe Rabbeinu, she was zeicha that the Yidden sped up her process when she was in her own tzaras. Okay, beautiful. It's a big thing. A person can say, "Oh, he's going to figure it out later." Yeah, but if you could save a guy. You know, some people, they have this shtick, they hold back information, even if it's not going to hurt them. I'm not going to tell them. Why? You give the guy advice and let him figure out earlier, even though eventually he'll get to the same conclusion, but if with your help, your knowledge, your advice, that can help somebody. So that's a big thing, like what Miriam did with her brother. Okay, now he says, in Tes, Miyena Shel Teda and Pirush Rashi from the wine of Torah. In other words, so we brought Pshat, We brought up Behaloscha, where we can learn certain things, and now the Rebbe explains. You see, this is a fascinating Sichah, how the Rebbe brings Pshat, he brings Halacha, and now he's going to bring Chassidus. So he says, Mien shall take in Pirish Rashi. So you can say, Mat sich gerät frier, B'tchilas HaSichah, as das was in der Mishnah steht, der Loschen, der Fikach, nis Akvela Yisrael, Chatsch ist Pashat, als der Hakava von Jiden ist gekommen von dem Ebersten, es ist nicht gewähnt, Hallo Yisrael, is weil the Mishnah haben euch Jiden gewollt warten auf Miriam. So it says we discussed, and this is at the beginning of the Sichah, that the Mishnah uses slightly a different wording. It says, the Mishnah says in Sichah, therefore the Jewish people waited. In other words, even though the Jewish people waited because Hashem commanded them to wait, as the cloud did not ascend until Hashem decided that, but the Yidden also, because according to the Mishnah, the Yidden also desired to wait for Moshe. In other words, it wasn't against their will. They also wanted it. Chotsch is mistaber, as euch Leute Rashi haben euch die Yidden gewollt auf ihr warten. Now, even though it makes a lot of sense that Rashi would agree that the Yidden also wanted to wait for her, what does Rashi say? It's over Rashi, Dafke Madgish, Rashi stresses Hamokim, Hashem. Nitvi in Mishnah in the Sakvala Yisrael. It doesn't say the Mishnah's terminology is in the Sakvala Yisrael. Rashi uses the expression of not the Mishnah. It says Hamokim, why? Shloimy, and Tam Pnimi of them. So the Rebbe asked before, why not use the same expression as the Mishnah? So Shloimy, Tam Pnimi of them Chiluk Tvishini Benim. So he says that we can say Al Pisor the difference between the wording that Rashi and the Mishnah according to Chassidus. Chazal tell us in Brachas, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis, as Al Koyel B'dei Shemaim Chutz Mir Shemaim. It says that everything is in the hands of Hashem, except for Yer Shemaim, except for fear of Hashem. Und Mahai Time is schwer zu sagen, as der Inyan Tev, das was Jiden haben gewahrt auf Miriam und damit ihr abgegeben Covid ist gewähnt nur mit Sad und B'dei Shemaim. So it's difficult to say that the Yidden who honored Miriam came only from the hands of heaven. Them loy ha'anan ha'anan loy ha'alei ha'anan unit mitzad zer egner ratzon. So it's very difficult to say that the only reason why they waited and honored Miriam was because this was b'dei shemayim and it was by the cloud not rising and basically had nothing to do with their own wishes. So the Rebbe says, "Mistarber loimer as adrabe." Das was der Anon is geblieben came is given their fire was the Yidden haben gewollt auf ihr warten. So he says it makes sense. On the contrary, that the reason the cloud stayed put was because the Jews wanted to wait for her. Und das ist die Mishnah Mad, und das ist die Mishnah Madrish lefikach nes akval Yisrael. Masem klal is hategen v'hemshich v'hamishna as mefirt sich mit Yidden in an Eifen von Mida knegen Mida. And this is the Mishnah emphasizes that the Yidden waited for her. This is with the theme and the continuation of the Mishnah that the Jewish people are treated Mida, because the whole sugya over there in Seita over there is talking about Mida Kneged Mida. Now, so that's according to the Mishnah. So according to the Mishnah, it makes sense logically that they waited because of the Yidden. As their Masa does given Andrish vi Alamasa is totally Ratzon von Yidden. However, according to Rashi, who Rashi is Pshutu Shemikra, even if it's true that the Jewish people also wanted to wait for her, according to Pshat, it's difficult to suggest that the encampment over here is different than all the encampments all around, and that this encampment depends on the will of the Jewish people. So he says, on a deeper level, you could say, as in Pirish Rashi initial Teda zog sich areis die Primis und Amitis von jeder Sach. Rashi's commentary, like the Rebbe said many times, is like the wine of Torah that expresses the inner dimension and truth of everything. What does that mean? Was kumen a idea vedes adam kumen euch mal nor von Hecher von Bidei Shemaim. Das says as euch das was Jiden haben gewollt ihr abgeben Covid ist das gekommen mit Tzadi Hiseris mal. So everything, as we said, Rashi initial Torah has the truth of everything, meaning even matters, like we say, Yirah Shemayim, which is brought about by a person's Aveda, as we said, Akol B'dei Shemayim Chutz Yirah Shemayim, really also comes from above. Now, this influence extends from a place beyond B'dei Shemayim, beyond the hands of heaven, meaning even the Jewish people's desire to honor Moshe was aspired from above. Mashenk in the Mishnah, however, in contrast to the Mishnah, which is Nigle de Teda, was da, had sich nicht on Begile, der Inyan. As ich das kommt mir meile warum damals ist das bestiert zu beginn Chavshis, nervous kommt durch aber das Adam. However, when we're learning the Mishnah, which the Mishnah is the revealed parts of Torah, so from the perspective it's not openly sensed how the influence also comes from above. Rather, according to the Mishnah, the choice was a product of a person's Aveda. Okay, see that's why the Rebbe says Al-Pi Pnimius, that's why Rashi does not say that it's totally on the Yidden, because even a Yid's own everything, it's all totally, it's all Yiserius Mamaila. Yud. Al-Pi Anal, vet min verstehen, verwaster Ingen as als kommt Mamailas Merumas in Pirshashi, Buseretzach wegen Tzoras Dafka. Now, based on this, we can appreciate the idea that in reality, everything from above is alluded in Rashi's comments regarding Tzoras. The Rebbe says like this: Klolis in Amatzeda was is nishlach michutz gimel machnes is mitzadem was is hepech from Klolis in Kedusha. The general idea of Mitzera being sent out of the three camps is because a Mitzera personifies the opposite of Kedusha, opposite of holiness. When there is michutz machne meishaveh, that's why the Mitzera has to dwell outside the camp. Oich michutz from machne Yisrael, even outside of machne Yisrael. Was beweist as is der weit afilu from der niedrigste madrega von machne Yisrael. So that shows that this Mitzera, he's so low and that he even is outside of the ordinary camp, which shows that he's even far from even the lowest camp of ordinary Jews. Shloimy as das is der tam pnimi von dem was nisbar leil as der ikke inyan by him is der chiyuv as soll sein mechutz machne dafke, weil wenn es is nitok in machnes, then bald setzt sich nit as is mechutz gvul kedusha. So we can say that the deeper reason for what we explained, the main point of the procedure involving the Mitzera is specifically his obligation to be outside the camp, because when there's no camp, it's not evident how he stands outside the parameters of kedusha. When the Rebbe is oich der inyan as yir shemaim kum mitzalamayla marumas b'sheiches zu im und beim zirus und tahara. Now, therefore, this idea that even Yer Shemayim descends from above is alluded also to the extent of the Mitzera and the idea of the purification. As thus is their tam was stayed by him, Behuva el Hakein was his mashma ba'al karcha. That's why we explained that Rebbe says a few times that it says in regards to the Mitzera that he shall be brought to the Kohen, and from there the Gemara learns out, which is mashma that he's compelled, he's forced to come. While the Yiserius Atshuva to Hazan Nidriker Darge was gefinzt mechutz to Gimel Machnes is nit mitzad mentioned. So because this that he has to return to Hashem on such a low level outside the three camp does not emerge from within the person. Warum? Gefindet sich in Hazad Nidrike Matziv is gar schwer as soll nicht werden zu Tshuva merchene. When a person is so low, it's difficult for him to be self-motivated to do Tshuva. Nor das is mitzad der Yiserius Mamaila. Rather, it's from the inspiration from above. Mitzad der Haftacha von der Eberstein as Bal Yidach Men Nidach was as Eigen Sinas Keach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yasser. It only comes from the fact that, we know, no Jew will be left behind. That this promise also empowers the person that Hashem provides